Hello, and welcome to an intro to Anthro with two humans. I'm human number one, John McCray.
And I'm human number two, John Lehr.
And this is the podcast where we reassess what it means to be human. And the title of this episode is Bewitched, Bothered, and Burnt, the honest truth about witch hunts.
Oh, God, I loved Bewitched, the show. I just loved it.
Did you?
Say, I did. I was all about it. I was fully in.
Yeah, I was looking, as I was researching this, I was like trying to find if there had been any backlash about putting all the witchcraft and everything on Bewitched.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I couldn't find anything specifically talking about it.
Well, yeah. The use of the nose. She had that nose.
Yeah. How about, which Darren did you like better?
That was the best part. It suited the show that all of a sudden they switched out the guy. And as a kid, it was really shocking.
Yeah.
I remember not realizing it for a while and then going, wait a minute. That's not the same guy.
Should he get married to somebody else? What's going on?
Didn't he die of a heart attack or something? Or did he?
I thought that was Sergeant Carter from Gomer Pyle died of it. And I don't think they replaced him. But
no.
Yeah, the Darren thing is always shocking if you put somebody else in there.
Yeah. You got to explain that shit. You can't just do that. That'd be like me replacing you.
Yeah,
and not saying anything.
But keep my name. Like,
yeah,
human number one, John McCray.
Yeah, I have a couple of people on deck that I would go to in a pinch.
I hope they're better. Better. Actually.
No,
better looking.
Better.
Better looking.
No, nope. But different. Definitely different and cheaper.
Well, good luck. I mean, my spinoff is going well. I've already got my solo project.
As long as it's come up, can I have the equipment, your audio equipment, if you go down?
God.
We should have a letter where it gets shipped to me immediately.
Yeah, I'll get out the label maker. Something on there, to John.
Yeah, just have a box ready so your wife can just pull it off the desk and throw it in and ship it to me.
Already a label on it. All she has to do is drop it off at the UPS store.
I had a joke with my mom. I think you know this, but when my mom, after my dad died, my mom and I were talking about how well he handled things and how everything was set up. Yeah. He had this pamphlet that he had gotten somewhere called Where Things Are When I'm Not There, which is fantastic. And if any of the listeners want it, I have a PDF of it. But it's this little pamphlet that forces you to list out, your credit cards and bank stuff and how you'd like to be buried and all these things.
Really?
And it was really helpful. My dad had it. And when he died, my mom was like, I should do that too. And I gave it to her and I said, Mom, what would really be helpful too is if you wrote out your own thank you notes for flowers for your funeral. And so it was a joke, but when she died, I looked in the folder and she had written out.
Oh, really? That's
these
great.
Cards that said, Dear blank, thank you for the blank. Love, Chris. And so I copied those off at a Kinko's or something. And I sent those out to people who sent flowers. So they got a thank you note straight from my mom. It's so funny. It totally cracked me up.
I had an uncle who wrote his own obituary beforehand.
Yes.
It was actually better. Like there were things that we never knew about,
Yes, I would prefer that. It's a pain to write. Have you had to write an obituary? Did you write one for your dad?
I didn't do my dad, but I did a cousin and I did my mom and my brother at the same time. Because we were doing this. They didn't die at the same time, but we were having the ceremony at the same time.
Yeah.
And it's hard.
It is hard. It's hard.
Do it justice.
Wouldn't you much rather they written their own? I would love that. In fact, why don't you bang yours out tonight so I have it? Yeah, I would appreciate that. Otherwise, I'm just going to post your bio from the website.
Just put the link.
Just put a link.
I've been keeping a folder of some ideas I want to say about myself.
Good.
But it's odd. I don't know if people are worried that, the vanity, I can't do it. It's like, you're not even there. You're not even
who
there.
cares? Just do it. Help us all out. Everybody within the sound of my voice, write your obit tonight, would you?
Send them in. Send them in.
Yeah, send them into us, and then we'll be the clearinghouse. We'll make sure it gets to your family when the time comes.
We'll punch them up a little bit.
Yeah. We'll add a few jokes.
We'll put it to the room. We got a room of stand-ups that will punch it up for you.
It's a room of two.
So anyway, John. Today's title, of course, is a reference to Bewitched, Bothered, and Bewildered, the song, which came from the musical, the Rodgers and Hart musical, Pal Joey from 1940.
Not a huge hit. Hasn't stood this test of time.
No, not really.
Pal Joey. When was the last time you saw a remount of Pal Joey?
Yeah, it's not traveling around. I haven't seen it come to Albuquerque. I know that, the traveling show.
No.
It was also Frank Sinatra played Pal Joey in the 1957 movie. And now Bewitched, Bothered, and Bewildered has become like a standard, like one of the classical standards of the American songbook.
Yes.
And,
yes.
I guess in 2003, Rod Stewart and Cher did a cover of it.
What? God, I know how you know that.
I know.
Your wife is a renowned Cher scholar.
Cher scholar, yeah. I had to put that in there.
Nice.
And also, although there's no witches in Pal Joey, I would say that it's safe for us to consider that our culture is witch obsessed. Like there are definitely a lot of movies and TV shows based on witches or have witches as main characters. And I would say, the most famous one, of course, is Shakespeare's Macbeth.
Yes.
Has the 3 witches in it.
Yes. Boil in trouble. Boy, what is it? Damn, I used to know that. Boil in trouble or something like that. Yeah. I think it's in the tagline for this week's episode. So excellent.
I should remember it.
You should know it.
I know. It's double, boil in trouble, I think.
Yes. Admit it. You've pawned off the subtitles to AI. You're not even doing it anymore.
Yeah, actually, AI wrote this entire thing. So if you're upset, don't blame me. Don't blame me because I didn't have anything to do with this. And then, of course, you had in fairy tales, you had Hansel and Gretel. Remember, they were like kidnapped by the witch who wanted to fatten them up and eat them.
That's a scary ass story, really.
that is.
God, is that a scary story?
I think what's scary is that, it wasn't too much better back at their house. Didn't their dad leave them out in the woods because he couldn't feed them? And
nobody liked him. Everybody wanted Hansel and Gretel dead. Maybe they were pains in the asses, I
don't know. Yeah, that's pretty sad when you're like, oh, the old witch who kidnapped them and wants to eat them may have been an improvement of their life.
Jesus.
And then last October, Paste Magazine did a list of the 30 best movies about witches. And it says something about how many movies there are about witches when you have a top 30 list.
Damn straight.
Instead of a top 10.
Yeah.
And they go all the way back to the 1942 movie.
Oh, sorry about that.
Oh, no.
Sorry. I accidentally hit our sound effects. Here, I'll give you another one. There we go.
Yeah,
all
save that one. We're going to need that one. We may have to put some tape over some of those. Just so you know. I was like, really? Now we get the ballpark? The 1942 movie, I Married a Witch with Veronica Lake and Frederick March. And
God. That Veronica Lake, man. Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
I think LA Confidential, Kim Basinger is supposed to play like a Veronica Lake character, right?
And she's close, but she's still not Veronica Lake. That was an amazing beauty.
Yeah, and what's funny is that movie she played a witch who had been burned and executed back in the 1600s, who comes back in the present to get revenge on the descendants of the person who executed her.
Damn.
And of course, she falls in love with him.
Yeah, of course.
So ultimately,
quite a conundrum.
Yeah. It's like still, even though you were executed, water under the bridge.
Yeah,
Basically, all
because
women just
you're a
want a
hunk.
man. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, he's a hunk. Think
Yeah.
how good looking you have to be to turn a witch.
I know.
Dang, that guy. He had some junk in the trunk. You know what I mean?
I'll have to go back in and see the stills. And then also they had the 1958 movie Bell, Book, and Candle with Jimmy Stewart and Kim Novak, who were reunited. I think they were. Were they in Vertigo? I think Kim Novak was in Vertigo.
Oh yeah, that might be right.
And this was their follow-up, again, a romantic comedy where she plays a witch who's trying to like interfere in his love life.
Because she's
then we
jealous.
Well, I think she starts out. I'll have to watch. I didn't have time to watch all of these.
Well, really, I think if you mentioned them in the show, you should have taken the time.
Yeah, I'll come back in.
We have a room with like 3 TVs playing movies at fast speed with you just like glancing at them all.
Just writing notes. Just give me a legal pad and let me write down some stuff. Remember Bedknobs and Broomsticks?
I sure do. Terrible. I hated that movie.
It was so
my
weird.
mom took us to that. I was like, what the hell is this thing?
Yeah. I love Pace Magazine said it best. They said, quote, "It's Mary Poppins on half the budget and double the LSD."
Yes. Well said. Well said.
Well said, Pace Magazine staff. The other thing, they had Practical Magic, 1998, the Blair Witch Project.
Yes.
Remember
that
one?
Scary. Ooh, that one got me. I didn't like that. Did you see it?
I did see it. I saw it in the movie theater, and it's one of those movies, Blair Witch Project and Moulin Rouge. Whenever I see them, I get motion sickness.
Oh,
I feel like I'm going to
they're
throw up.
It's all that handheld stuff.
Yeah,
but when that kid's in the room with his back to them in the basement, I didn't like that.
What was great is you never really saw the witch in that one, if I remember correctly.
Yeah,
so
and
it was probably
sticks and stuff.
Yeah,
imagine coming out of your tent, you're camping, and there's a bundle of sticks sitting there. That'd freak me out, man.
Or footsteps, like footsteps going around your tent would be frightening as well.
God.
Then they talk about the Chronicles of Narnia. Remember, there was the White Witch with the Turkish delight. Remember, she kept feeding that kid. Into the Woods, The Witches of Eastwick, Snow White and the Seven Dwarves.
Right.
And The Witches, which I guess is based on a Roald Dahl story, which I think they just made another one of that one. They keep coming up with that one. Yeah. But it's a little dark, I think.
Yeah. Well, Roald Dahl, you know it is going to be. What was wrong with that guy?
Yeah. They mentioned also Rosemary's Baby. And they said that...
Scary.
Yeah. That it's, all of those people helping or
witches.
Trying to get the baby are witches. They're working for the devil. Is what they're trying to do.
Because weren't they all connected to the, I don't know, pilgrims somehow? Or I can't remember. I got to watch that movie again. That's scary. That's a good one.
And then Suspiria, which was a Dario Argento in 1977, an Italian witch story. And then they mentioned the best one of being The Witch, directed by Robert Eggers, which was a 2016 film. I actually saw that one. It takes place at very low budget or very like small cast. Takes place in 1620 out in New England. A family's been banished for some religious disputes. Ooh. And then there's some witchcraft or something going on out there. And that one that one was terrifying. Yeah.
Oh, I like that. I'm putting that on my list. My witch list. Okay.
Where's the sound effect for that?
Yeah.
One? That's what
you're not the only one hitting the AI. You know what I'm saying?
So anyway, the ones that they didn't have were Bewitched, which I guess wasn't a film. The Wizard of Oz, even though we have a good witch and a bad witch.
What about the Crucible? What about the Crucible?
Yeah, they didn't bring that one up.
Yeah.
They didn't bring up that one.
I dated a gal who was in the Crucible playing the lead, the one who's
really?
the witch. And that was some good times, man, when she was preparing for that role. She was this amazing actor.
Mary is related to one of the Rebecca Nurse. Her family goes back to one of the women who was executed in the Salem witch trials.
No wonder your marriage is still going so well.
Also, we had Wicked. Remember, Wicked is a popular musical.
Yeah. All right. I saw it.
Did you ever have to go see it? Did you have to go see it?
I did.
Yeah.
Excuse me. Yeah, I saw it. I'm allergic to it. It's making me sneeze. I thought it was, what? Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a story of all the witches from Wizard of Oz, right?
Yeah, it's a prequel. Yeah. And, I don't know.
I read somewhere where, like, Frank Baum, the guy who wrote Wizard of Oz, his mother-in-law was like a suffragette, or I think she was a suffragette or women's rights activist. And some people think that he modeled Glinda the Good Witch after her.
Oh,
so
that's cool.
I need to double check that.
Yeah.
And then finally we get to Harry Potter.
Yes.
Harry Potter didn't even make their list at all.
Yes. God, that's right. Yeah.
Did
Harry
you
Potter.
were your kids into Harry Potter?
Yes, my daughter burned through them all, and so I read it. So of course, as a good father, I read them too. I didn't get all the way through. I burned out somewhere along the line. But, and I haven't seen all the movies. Same thing. Sort of my son, the version of that was, all of the what do you call it? The Disney, the Avengers universe.
Oh yeah.
Marvel universe. And same thing. He burned out right around. I can't remember. Anyway, he burned out like before we got to the end.
Really? It's well, how about in 1999, the New York Times wrote an article by Jody Wilgerin, and she noted that, quote, some evangelical ministers have begun to preach against Harry Potter. There are whispers about the books being the work of the devil. The remarkable popularity, 5 million hardcover and 2 million paperback books sold in the United States. Evidence of satanic strength.
Yeah. but they've all endorsed Trump.
I know. So to me, I mean, the popularity of the Harry Potter book, and I read a few of them, but I did see all the movies. Mary was really into them. Is that they were all about how we all feel in school. You know what I mean? It's like you all we feel like an outcast. We don't feel like we belong.
Mm-hmm.
We all want to be special, and we all want to have some good friends that have our back or that are always there for us.
Yes.
And to me, I mean, that's what was the beauty about the Harry Potter books. I don't know. It was still a work of fiction. I don't know about the actual witchcraft that was involved in it.
Yeah.
But I'd say, like, for me personally, I love that story, and you, Frank, and Jeff are good friends. We're liked by Ron and Hermione.
Yes,
and
Harry. We saved each other. I think all of us. We were such misfits in the middle of Kansas, and we found each other, and that saved us. For sure.
And I think that's why kids love the books, more than the fantasy or whatever. It's that core friendship. Now, in the past 20 years, J.K. Rowling has managed to drive away her fans who identified with that original story or that original theme by tweeting her opinions about sex and gender issues.
Yes. Boy.
And I don't know what it is, but it seems like once people get rich, they think they know everything.
Yes. Well, everybody's telling them they know everything.
Yeah. They start popping off about every subject as if they're an expert in it,
Well, I mean, let's get real. Everybody thinks they know everything, and then when you start making money on top of it, then you really know everything.
Everybody just tells you what you want to hear. What I mean? It's like,
that sounds good. Sure.
Yeah.
But boy, they screwed up with JK. Somebody should have been saying, listen, let's go for a walk here. You know how many people's salaries you're about to burn down?
I know. And to ruin the legacy of that franchise, I think, But it's where you tell me you have a friend that has like a 15-minute timer on his tweets or something?
Yes, on his email. He is he's built in. Apparently, there's a way to do this. I'm sure it's very simple. It's a 20-minute delay on his emails.
Yeah.
So when he sends an email, he's got a window of 20 minutes before that email actually gets sent.
Yeah.
And,
that's a great idea.
That's such a good idea.
Yeah. Yeah. Just to give you a second thought after that thing goes out.
Yes. We should market the plugin. Like we should sell the plugin online. The intro to Anthro 20-minute delay email. And you
it
just
would
click
save a lot of
on
relationships, a lot of jobs, a lot of
I mean,
careers.
Everybody has that experience with a reply all. I don't care who you are or what you do for a living. All of us have had that experience with a reply all. The worst feeling in the world.
That was just for John. I do that with at work. I get 4 different IM threads going.
Yes. Oh.
And you're trying to cut. I had to stop commenting on one of the rolling the eyes or something because you make a mistake. You send it out.
Put it in the wrong one. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
And I know people are probably saying, well, what about you guys? You guys have a podcast. You guys are always popping off about everything.
Yep.
You know everything.
That's right. And you can spend $100 on a microphone and do the same thing.
Well, I was going to say there's a big difference between us and the people that usually do it. First of all, you and I aren't rich.
Right. Right. We're not rich.
And secondly, we always admit that we don't know anything.
Yes, hopefully. And if we don't, I'd like to retroactively say that right now.
Yeah.
Please.
We've mentioned that before. If we are both recovered alcoholics and addicts.
And we're stupid.
And we've been in a lot of therapy. We're the first ones to say that we don't know anything.
Yes. So. In fact, that's how you know everything. When you say you don't know everything.
Oh, no.
The worm. The snake eats its own tail.
You just undid everything I did there.
Sorry.
But anyway, John, often when a person does say something outrageous now and people push back on it and try to hold them legally accountable for what they've said or done,
right? People
will turn around and say, I'm a victim of a witch hunt.
Yes.
There's a witch hunt that's out there.
Yes.
So I thought today, John, we could talk about witches and we could talk about real witch hunts. Just so people can identify what's going on. And maybe put a 15-minute thought or a 15-minute delay on saying you're the victim of a witch hunt.
Yes. Yes.
So anyway, because you can't read the news anymore without seeing a witch hunt. Usually it's an old white guy who's claiming he's the victim. Usually some rich old white guy who's claiming he's the victim of a witch hunt.
A witch hunt, yes.
And how unfair everything is, and he doesn't deserve this, and the whole world is turned against him. And I have to say, you and I are both old white guys.
Yes.
And I will say, old white guys, you gotta nut up. All right.
Yeah. Let me tell you something. What you're calling a witch hunt is an aggravation.
Yeah.
Compared to the real world.
Yeah. And because as an old white guy, I'm telling you, we've had it pretty good for the last 500 years at least. Probably the last 3,000 years.
3,000, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, look at the Canaanites. Jesus.
Yeah. We've always had it good. And so it's, I would say that old white guys have had it better than any other color, sex, religion, or gender ever.
Ever. Then why aren't you and I better off? I mean, we fit all the demos. I feel like we're not benefiting from the patriarchy the way we should.
I mean, but just think of how it would be if we weren't old white guys.
Oh my God.
If we weren't
we wouldn't be here.
Yeah.
We wouldn't be sober, I'll tell you that much.
Yeah. And I just think that just because people over the last 100 years have achieved even a sliver of the freedom that old white guys have always had in this country.
Mm-hmm.
Old white guys fall apart. And they
I
start
know.
blubbering about how unfair everything is.
Yeah. It's like billionaires when they get taxed. It's, oh my
Yeah,
God.
That's unfair. Yeah.
That's so unfair. I work so hard for my money. Really?
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
So
we all do. We all do. And
we all
have
do.
To pay we all have to pay taxes. You're no different. You're no
pay
different.
up.
Yeah.
Bezos.
And I'd say also for me, as an old white guy, my freedom doesn't depend on taking away the freedom of somebody else. You know what I mean? It's like I don't see my freedom diminishing when I see other people get their freedoms.
Look at you. You're out there rock. I love it. You're digging ditches out there today. I love that. You're on the chain gang.
Yeah. And I'd say, if you're an old white guy being investigated for anything, then chances are, there's something that made them suspect. You'll probably get off for one thing, or you may be not guilty. But the thing is, the cops aren't out driving around pulling over old white guys.
No,
just
no,
for looking suspicious. You know what I mean?
Know. I fired 4 rounds from a handgun at a police car. He still didn't pull me over.
I know. Just wanted to. He gave you new ammunition. You know what I mean?
I gave him the finger and I mooned him, and still he was like, "On your way."
All right, freedom.
Go straight
don't tread
home.
on me.
Yeah, go straight home.
Don't tread on me, brother. But anyway, and I know that when people talk about witch hunts, they're usually using it as a metaphor, or I hope they're using it as a metaphor.
Yes, of course.
And the problem is that if you use metaphors incorrectly and you use them over and over again, it tends to dilute that metaphor.
Yes. I mean, look at the moon is cheese. The moon is cheese. Yeah. That's been so diluted. It's not even cheese anymore.
Exactly. But it's between 1450 and 1750, there were estimated 50,000 to 100,000 people were actually executed for being witches in Europe and in North America.
Wow.
And
you're counting in the Inquisition on that, right? There's the Inquisition part of that? Okay.
It's hard to tell because a lot of people, the numbers I came up with were, in the past, I always said millions, but then now historians are looking more realistically at like 50 to 100,000 victims.
That's a lot of people.
But that's not counting the people that were arrested or had their lives damaged and then were
put on the rack, had their thumbs screwed.
Yeah.
Whatever. Buried up to their neck.
I don't know that one. But
no, I don't know. I don't know where that one came from.
I was like, send me that
it's
reference.
Horrible.
But the victims of the witch hunts were overwhelmingly women.
Mm-hmm.
And usually at first it was older single women who brought suspicions on themselves by living alone and not having a husband. And then eventually it was all women, or usually poorer women or outspoken women could be accused of it. A very small number of men were ever accused of witchcraft. Usually they were the husbands of the women who were accused of witchcraft.
Yeah. You're going down too, brother.
Yeah. If you stood up for your wife, you would go down. And I would say, I would say probably very small percentage of the victims were men, and probably even a smaller portion of that were rich men that were actually tried and executed for witchcraft.
Yeah. Yeah, you had to have some enemies in high places to be a rich dude getting burned at the stake.
Yeah. And so you could see why the irony of like old rich guys now, and myself being an old white guy, but like a rich old white guy, like saying that he's a victim of a witch hunt, even if it's like being a metaphor. It would be like throwing out the Holocaust, for example, as using the Holocaust for every inconvenience that you have, like getting a
Oh,
ticket, or
it was a
something.
Holocaust on the 405 today.
No, I know. You know what I mean? But you
Well,
see
actually,
people.
that one's appropriate. That one's appropriate. If you've ever tried to go south on the 405 during rush hour, forget it.
Like it's bad. It's bad.
Yeah.
But I would you would have to if someone said that, oh, it's a Holocaust, or it's like I got a ticket today and it's like the Gestapo. It's like, well, it's a little bit, it's not really like the Gestapo. You know what I mean? Yeah.
No.
But again, it's like when you use that metaphor all the time and blow it out of proportion, then people can't reach a point where people can't tell when you really do have genocide.
That's right. That's right. Boy who cried wolf.
Yeah. So today, John, we're going to look at real witch hunts and the history of real witch hunts.
Excellent. Wow.
And
this is fascinating.
Yeah, just so we can take a look and try to better understand when we use that term.
Excellent.
First off, just to give a little background, Wicca now is a contemporary pagan religion.
Mm-hmm.
And according to Helen Berger in the article, What is Wicca? An Expert on Modern Witchcraft explains, she says that 800,000 to 1.5 million people in the United States practice Wicca as their religion.
Wow. Are you Wicca? Yeah. You're not Wicca, are you?
I'm not Wicca, but as I was reading it, it sounds pretty good.
Yeah.
As I read it.
Yeah.
And Berger says that Wiccans have one overriding rule, which is harm none and do as you will.
Yes, do as you will. Wow.
Yeah.
I was just in a Wicca store not long ago. There's one off of Hollywood Boulevard. I bought a friend of mine some labradite, which is a crystal. I was informed by the warlock running the store. And believe me, he is. And he said it'll accentuate all of her powers.
Really?
Yes.
Labradite.
Labradite.
Is it black? What color is it?
It's like dark. It's weird. It's kind of darkish, greenish, yellow. It sort of changes depending on the light hits it.
Really?
Light. Yeah. And I asked him, is labradite related to Labradors? And he said, I don't know. So that's as far as I got. I was like, all right, put it in a bag.
Yeah. Maybe it was found in Labrador. I bet
maybe.
It was found.
Yeah.
I'll do a little research on it.
I'm
writing that down.
Yeah, here you go.
I'm writing
Done.
That down.
Have the AI figure that one out. You deserve a night off.
Berger also says that instead of having a formal religion structure, Wicca puts more emphasis on ritual and direct spiritual experience than belief.
I like that.
She says that's why Wiccans will refer to themselves as practitioners instead of believers.
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah,
hey.
So that sounds pretty good to me.
Yeah.
That sounds pretty good to me.
I'm liking this. I'm going back to that shop and asking him when the meeting is.
Yeah, pick up a pamphlet for both of us. She also says that Wiccans celebrate a goddess instead of a god, which I also feel like gets some of that female energy in there.
Whatever, sure.
And she says that Wicca sees a divinity in nature and celebrates a yearly cycle of rituals known as Sabbats that celebrate the beginning and height of each of the 4 seasons of the Northern Hemisphere.
All right, now they've lost me because I am a Black Sabbath fan, and I know what those Sabbats, what they're doing.
They're
pulling the heart, still beating hard out of some victim, eating it like an apple.
She says that each ritual encourages participants to celebrate the changes the seasons bring to nature and to reflect on how those changes are mirrored in their own lives.
I love that. Very sweet.
Me too.
Yeah, I love
it's
that.
All self-reflection, like yearly self-reflection throughout the year. See how things are going.
Fantastic.
Yeah, and she says
we're pro-Wicca. We're pro-Wicca on this. We're going to be pro-Wicca. Excellent. Love that.
I'm not a Wiccan, but all of this sounds very good to me.
We're Wiccan allies is who what we are.
Right.
Yeah.
She also said that most Wiccans practice magic, which they believe taps into a spirit world, often referred to the other world, and others think of magic as drawing on an energy field they view as surrounding all of us.
Okay. See, this is where now we're talking about the Force.
Yeah. but she said, they do magic to heal themselves and others, or to find a new home or job, among other things, and emphasize that magic must not cause harm.
Okay, I love
so
that.
Again, it's positive magic. And to me, I don't see any difference between that and like praying, like saying a prayer or trying to put positive energy out into the universe for whatever.
Right. But I'm going to stay the course as a druid. I mean, I'm dug in.
Well, I will say, for 50 years, I prayed that the Chiefs would win another Super Bowl.
Yeah.
And look what happened. Look how they are. My prayers
keep
came
praying.
true.
Keep doing it. Don't stop. Because pretty soon Mahomes is going to be gone and we're going to need you again. So keep going.
Every time I see him, I see him out like playing golf or something. I just see like him blowing out both knees or something.
Exactly. They should put him in an induced coma until it's time to play football.
Just put those like things that shock you to keep your muscles tense.
Just put him in a iron lung or something.
Yeah. John, you said you went down to the store, the witchcraft store.
Yes, I sure did.
How do you feel about witchcraft? I mean, have you ever dated anyone that was
I certainly have. Not a Wiccan, but I've dated some women, a couple of women, one in particular that I'm thinking of that is extremely I don't know how to say it, but I mean, I use the word witchy just because I don't know another way to put very intuitive and I mean, unreal. Like she would just know stuff and I don't know. I mean, it was intense. It was, and she, So I don't know. I brought it up to her and I was like, and she just kind of nodded like knowingly, but that's all I got. I didn't get any more information. So maybe she was Wiccan, but she definitely had something going on more than me. Way more aware than I was, which isn't saying much.
I'm the same way. I had a girlfriend in college who told me that she had put a spell on me.
Oh, Jesus.
By burying something under a tree on campus.
Oh, man.
And I'm like, oh man. My God. Oh, my God.
Oh.
And I think she probably did that just to scare me.
Well, it worked.
Me in line.
It
really worked.
Yeah.
But eventually, it's that relationship went down like all of my relationships at that time. And like, a glorious
flame.
Ball of fire.
Yes. But a fabulous ball of fire. That's the thing.
Yeah.
Fabulous.
Yeah.
Yeah. But there's some, I believe there's stuff that I'm not aware of. I mean, I'm not going to, I'm certainly, look, it's the same reason I'm not an atheist, Like I don't know that I don't know. And I don't know. I mean, I do know that I don't know. I don't know that it's not there. And I'm certainly not going to speak out my butt. But even though I do on this show all the time.
Well, speaking of that, John, I mean, the other experience I had with a Wiccan was, as you know, you and I are old friends, and we've been in a lot of unusual situations together. but that I have a birthmark on my ass.
I sure do.
That looks like a map of Ireland.
And not just a map of Ireland, like the coastal. Like you could sail a ship with that mole, that birthmark. We could dock a ship using that.
And anyway, at one time, probably when I was younger and I didn't wait. Now it's probably, I don't know what it looks like. It probably looks like Australia or something. But there was a time when, it was very accurate map of Ireland, a birthmark.
Well, you used to show it on St. Paddy's Day to your mother, as I recall, or you at least did once. And didn't you have to kind of bend a certain way? Like it wasn't just a matter, like you had to kind of torque it a little bit to get it exactly right. Yeah.
But you could definitely tell what it was. It was there.
Absolutely.
And so a girlfriend of mine at the time told a friend of hers who was a Wiccan.
Uh-oh.
And that Ireland plays into, because of the Druids and because of the Celtic religion, it's a very special place for Wiccans, Ireland.
Yes, it is.
And so this Wiccan had tracked me down to see my birthmark.
Oh boy!
so
oh wow!
It was the same thing. I mean, it was. I remember showing it to her, and she was probably shocked that it was so easy to get me to drop my pants.
Yeah,
but at that
you're like,
time,
look, you wore it as a prize, as you should. It was a medal. It is a medal.
There was a time where people would be burned for having
Mhm.
witch marks, devil marks. You know
Listen,
what I mean?
why don't you have Mary take a picture of it so we can post it? And just put listen to me, just put it in full frame so we don't see anything untoward.
Yeah.
Just take a full frame picture of it. I think because we need to show people it's pretty amazing.
Maybe I'll draw it. I don't know.
No, come on. Jesus. I think we need a picture. I'm going to talk to Mary offline.
I think it's because I stopped drinking. When I was drinking, I'd show it to everybody. Be like, yeah, take a look at this. You know.
Listen, this is for the good of the podcast. This is for research.
All I know is when she saw it, though, she was the same way, kind of shocked, taken aback by it, like oh my god, you know what I mean?
It is. It's a surprising thing. It's like seeing Jesus on a piece of toast or something. It's like what? It's like, what's that doing there?
So I'm like Bill Murray in Caddyshack. Remember we talked about caddying for the Dalai Lama? He's like, oh, he gave me. So at least I have that going for me. At least I have this magical bird. I probably would have been burned, 400 years ago for it. The other thing I read about, John, was this magical thinking, from a psychological standpoint.
Yes.
And Laura Harold, in an article titled Magical Thinking and Generalized Anxiety Disorder, talks about magical thinking as the belief that your thoughts, feelings, or actions will affect someone's behavior or the outcome of a situation.
Yes. The Secret. The Secret. Have you ever seen The Secret, the video, or any information about The Secret where you manifest things?
I've read about it, but go on, tell me about it.
Well, I'm in AA, and it burned through AA because AA was all about not praying for yourself and being of service. Man, when The Secret came out, everybody was like, "Screw this! I'm going to manifest my life." You don't want to tell a bunch of ex-drunks, that they can just think of stuff. And I had a friend show up at a meeting with on a motorcycle and a brand new Harley. And I knew he didn't have any money. And I was like, dude, how did you get this? And he's like, it's The Secret. I manifested it. And then I went down and I got it. And I'm like, you didn't manifest anything. You just got yourself in a loan that you can't afford.
You got a 0% interest loan.
Right.
2 months or whatever.
It was repoed. It was eventually repoed, and I'm thinking to myself, did you manifest that too?
Yeah. But that's basically it. But that's still that's a belief in magic. You know what I mean? It's like, and Harold says that usually occurs in young children under the age of 5. But they don't yet understand that the mind is separate from the world around them.
Yeah, children under the age of 5 and dried alcoholics over 40.
I know. I know. I mean, but it's still that whole thing about people saying, I'm just going to will it to happen. I'm going to will it to happen. This magical thinking. Harold says that sometimes this is adaptive or helpful. Magical thinking. Some people call it magical thinking. Some people call it a belief system. But it helps us interpret the world around us in an adaptive way.
Absolutely. And that's got to go way back. Hey, you guys, go kill that saber-toothed tiger. I'm going to burn this sage. Now you're protected. Go do it.
Right.
Yeah. Hell yeah. I'll take whatever I got. Give me some sage.
Yeah, because to me, I feel like we're just all trying to figure out whether this clusterfuck of life, you know what I mean? And whatever
you got, you got, I'll hang it from my rearview mirror if it, protects me from an accident. Hell yeah.
So we're all using that magic, and that's all the rituals, superstitions, magical thinking was all part of what was considered traditional folk magic or folk belief for thousands of years, and in the article Mail Order Magic, the Commercial Exploitation of Folk Belief, Loudell Snow says the use of magic in adapting to adverse life situations is found worldwide. And superstitious beliefs and practices are likely to cluster around those areas of group life which are of great emotional significance.
Yes. The bigger it is, the
Right.
bigger, the more you need the magic.
Right. So that's why you have people using magic for finding a job, finding love, getting a new Harley, all of these things uh,
Mm,
that we are important to us
yeah.
emotionally. We need help. We need help with these.
But you know what? It's also fun. It's
Yeah.
fun. Like horoscopes are fun. It's fun to like, I don't know, just to set aside your logic side and
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
you know what, there is true unknowable things in the fabric of the universe that I like, this ability, for example, for us to observe our own selves. If
Yeah.
you can observe yourself, what
Right.
is going on there, what's observing what,
Yeah.
in that
Yeah.
moment, and we all share that kind of magic,
Yeah.
and it's a really beautiful, wonderful thing,
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
we have this higher self, this sentience that binds us all together. And when we all share that, and there's a certain I don't know, magical beauty to that.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I don't want to know why. I really don't want to know why.
Yeah. Yeah. I feel the same way. To me, it's always Carl Jung wrote about the I Ching, which is
Hmm.
like a Taoist or a Chinese way to I don't know, fortune telling. I don't know what you would call it,
Yeah.
but his point was, you throw the coins or you pull the sticks on it, and then you use that to it brings up something for you to think about for yourself.
Hmm.
You know what I mean?
Hmm.
And whether or not it actually is touching it or like going into some way of seeing the future, at least gets you thinking about yourself
Which
or
is sort
something
of
different about
the
you.
point and the self. I mean, I think that's the self-fulfilling prophecy of it, which is
Yeah,
the same with
yeah,
horoscopes. You read your horoscope and it does trigger something in you to think
yeah,
about.
yeah.
Uh, and yeah.
Um, in a 1914 article, "Sympathetic Magic in the Kentucky Mountains: Some Curious Folk Survivals," Josiah
Mm.
Combs said that sympathetic magic in Eastern Kentucky groups it falls into two leading divisions: witchcraft and the ancient belief of charms.
Charms.
Yeah.
Oh, that's cool.
So, and he gives some examples of things that witches did. And he said witches were known to, quote, transform certain individuals into horses and ride them all night, restoring the bewitched to their natural shapes before daylight.
All right, I know what that means. Wait a minute.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
could see right through that one.
Yeah, I was like, wait a second. Oh yeah, I was
Yeah.
transformed into a horse and rode me
Yeah.
all night, and then
She
now
rode
I'm
me all
back.
night. Yeah.
Now I'm back to
It
my
wasn't
normal.
me. It was a charm.
The other thing that they would do is they would use. Combs says that the traditional witches would use witch balls, and they
Whoa.
would draw a not actually the balls of a witch,
Oh,
but they
okay.
would draw a picture of a person on a tree, and then they take a ball of horsehair or cow hair and throw it at the picture, and if wherever it hit, that would cause a problem of the
Whoa. So it's sort of like a voodoo, like
right,
the
right,
version of that. Woo.
yeah, yeah,
Witch balls. What?
yeah.
So what? Horsehair, and they put some spit in it and just throw it at it.
Yeah, I guess. And he quotes that in Knott County, Kentucky, several years ago, and he wrote this in 1914. A man was plowing in the field and suddenly dropped dead between his plow handles. It was a strange case and doubtless never would have been solved had it not been for a single piece of undeniable evidence. When he fell dead, a witch ball dropped out of his mouth.
What?
I don't know.
What was he doing with a witch ball in his mouth?
Or who would have? They didn't see him right when he fell. He was out in the field. You
Yeah.
know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's
Who
like,
saw that? Wait a
yeah,
minute. I'm not
undeniable evidence. Undeniable evidence.
undeniable. Yeah. He had a stroke.
I know. I know. The point I'm trying to make, though, John, is that people have always used magic, and they're still using magic of
Yeah.
some form or another. But how did we go from these superstitions to actually rounding up people and executing them for being witches?
Yeah.
And in her book, Witchcraft, A History and 13 Trials, Marian Gibson says, in early history, magic was considered to be a power innate in healers, shamans, and religious leaders across multiple cultures. It allowed them to go beyond natural abilities to change the world in inexplicable ways.
Whoa.
So again, we're talking about for thousands of years, like you had mentioned, like when people would go out and hunt, or you would draw a drawing of a bison on a cave somewhere for magical purposes. We have always had that in us. We've always considered that magic in us.
Yes.
But it wasn't until the medieval period in Europe when a new religious theology came across, demonology, that people started to see this witchcraft, this traditional study, as being evil, as being related to the devil.
Well, I always thought that my assumption was that it was Catholicism saw it as a threat.
Right.
And
right. And it came about, during the Reformation of, and the thing is, during the Reformation, when people were being accused of heresy, and suddenly the church was trying to, I think it was in the 1200s that the church came out with the Inquisition to go find heretics.
Yes. And then you had the expulsion of the Jews around that time too, didn't you?
Right.
Yep.
And it's interesting because one of the books I read was talking about how in places where Catholicism was really strong, for example, in Spain and Portugal, you didn't have as many witch accusations because they were dealing with the heretics of the Jews and the Muslims there.
Uh-huh.
Whereas
they had plenty of people to focus on.
I know. Yeah. So it was in like Germany and Northern Europe that you had people looking for witches because you didn't have as many like Jews and Muslims up at that point. And also that was the side of the Reformation to where you had both Protestants and Catholics calling each other heretics.
Right.
So in an article called The Witch Hunt as a Cultural Change Phenomenon, Thomas Schoenemann says that previously in history there had been heretical movements in Europe, and he mentions the Waldenses, who, like in the 1170s, who lived lives of poverty. And then there were the Cathari, who believed the world was created by Satan and was inherently evil. And there was, we had to renounce the material world because the material world was evil. They were seen as heretics as well.
Okay.
But he says that when the Papal Inquisition was created in 1233, this goal of seeking out heresy actually led to a perceived, if not actionable, increase in heresy itself. So by creating the Inquisition to go out and find heretics, it made it seem like if you tell someone go find heretics, they're going to find heretics everywhere.
Yeah, they are. Hell yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yep.
So he says that the idea that, once they created the Inquisition, heresy just blew out of control.
Turns out they're everywhere.
Right. And in the same light, the harder the Inquisition worked to get rid of heresy, the more it seemed like the heresy was spreading.
Right. Because you're building this infrastructure of people whose job it is, livelihood depends on finding heretics.
Right.
So, yeah.
And in 1484, Pope Innocent VIII released his papal bull Summus Desiderantes Effectibus, and in this he officially recognized that witchcraft was a problem. And he appointed two guys, two priests, James Springer and Heinrich Kramer, as inquisitors to go out and root out all the witchcraft.
Wow.
Yeah. Wow. And in 1486, Springer and Kramer published a book called The Malleus Maleficarum, The Hammer of Witches, that told inquisitors how to investigate, try, and execute witches.
Jesus.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. And in an article called The European Witch Craze of the 14th to 17th Centuries, a sociologist perspective, Nachman Ben-Yehuda says that in the European witch hunts of the 14th to 17th centuries, witchcraft was transformed into a completely evil entity which created problems instead of solving them.
Yes.
So again,
God, we're horrible primates, aren't we? We're just horrible. God, I hate us.
It's like we had this traditional magic, you know what I mean? We had this traditional magic that we were using, or these folk beliefs that people were just trying to get by in their lives with. You know what I mean?
Which, by the way, Christianity and Judaism both used. Christmas happens to fall around the solstice. You have the winters. And then they just turned on them.
Yeah. And that's really what, I mean, at this time period, the church wouldn't admit, there's magic in the Bible. There's magic in all Catholicism, I think.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
And all religion, there's magic. But of course, the magic that's coming from God or the supreme being of your religion is a miracle.
Evil. It's a miracle.
Like one man's miracle.
Somebody else's witchcraft. Yeah. A curse.
And so again, because, both Catholics and Protestants were calling each other heretics, you found it in both sides. So you even had up in Protestant areas of Germany and in Northern Europe, England, that's where, you again had people being accused of witchcraft and being rounded up and tried. Usually most witches were thought to be female. And it kind of goes back to in the Bible with Eve, where people felt that, like traditional religious thought,
the original
Eve
sin
had given in to the devil's temptation. Therefore, all women were considered weak, and all women were thought that they would be susceptible to the devil. Therefore, most women, women were of particular suspicion for being witches at the time. And Gibson says that demonologists thought that if a woman was poor, Satan could appear offering money or goods and actually enrich her. If she resented obeying men, he could free her. If she wanted companionship, the devil could visit as a lover or a pet. If she wanted revenge, he could crush her enemies. And keep in mind, all of these things, wealth, love, success, these were all the things that were covered before by traditional belief system, traditional magic.
Yeah.
And again, it's, so before, where the church prior to, the 1400s always saw like traditional magic as just being an illusion. Like they kind of acknowledged that people did it, but didn't acknowledge that it was real or had any real influence in the world. Suddenly after 400, all of these traditional beliefs that people would do were evil, and, again, the problem Gibson says is that there was no real proof. There was no real proof of these people, for all the talk about someone, causing somebody's death through witchcraft, for all this talk about somebody having a witch's Sabbath with the devil and there was no proof of any of that.
Right.
Which, it kind of reminds me of, remember in Kansas in the 80s, when there was always the talk about the devil worshippers.
Yes. Yes. Around our high school. Yes.
Yeah. Remember, there was always, nobody ever really saw the devil worshippers.
No.
Nobody ever really knew where they were. Nobody ever said they were a devil worshipper.
Yes. But you'd hear about it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that was around the time when the whole war on music lyrics and explicit language and heavy metal and all of that. The devil worshippers.
Everywhere, they were always supposed to be out somewhere, out south of town. They were outside. Oh, they gather in the woods out south. And everybody had a story. Everybody had heard, I heard of my brother had mentioned it.
Yes.
Nobody ever firsthand. I think Frank said he had known some of them when they just sat around and got high or something like that. But it's sort of the same thing. It's like these, the idea that you could accuse somebody of witchcraft without any real proof of it. You know what I mean? And then it was up to the person to, once the person was arrested and put on the rack, and then they were forced to confess that they were being witches. But there was no proof, really.
Right.
that you could
Right.
argue against. And I remember also there was supposed to be a town right outside of Lawrence, Kansas, was supposed to be a portal to the gates of hell.
What?
Yeah,
Where?
yeah. It's
What
an
town?
old. I think it's Stoll, Kansas. I don't want to speak out of turn. I think it's Stoll, Kansas. But there was that rumor back in at that time. This old abandoned church. It was just a stone church with walls, no roof.
Mm.
It was a portal to to hell, and the rumor was you could throw bottles at the wall and they wouldn't break.
Oh yeah, I remember hearing this.
I know
I
everybody.
remember this.
So one time a friend of mine and I, we skipped class in college, and we were like, let's go find that portal now. We had to see it.
Yeah.
And so we drove out there, and the first thing I noticed when we were walking up was all the broken glass. So, all these people had gone up there and thrown it, and of course the bottles had broken. You know what I mean?
That's so funny.
But again, it's like, these things just spread. They just spread for people. And Gibson says, another big part of the witch hunts were misogyny. And again, coming back to at that point in Europe, and probably still today, the culture, it was women were most accused witches were poorer women, some women with unusual beliefs about religion, or even women with an assertive manner would be accused of witchcraft. In other words, women that weren't, quietly living the life of the culture, what the culture said that women should do. And the other thing, if you were a woman and things were already going badly for you, that would put you under suspicion. So if you had been like somehow you were unemployed or homeless or had been sexually abused, somehow that said the culture would set you up at that point for being a witch, like you were suspected. Then if you spoke out against it, if you said something, like if you said like the hell with this, or like this life sucks, or like somebody abused you and you spit at them or told them to get away, then you would be accused of being a witch at that time. And Gibson notes that 75 to 90% of the people accused of witchcraft were women at that time. And the other thing, poorer people disproportionately were accused of witchcraft, obviously. Because usually poor people couldn't defend themselves. They couldn't hire a lawyer to come in and try to protect them in court. And just I want to touch on one more thing before we wrap up, John, is in the book Witch Hunt, or in his article, The Witch Hunt as a Cultural Change Phenomenon, Thomas Schoenemann says that an examination of the socio-cultural milieu surrounding witch hunts and scapegoating operations reveals that these movements happen in times of social change and upheaval, which is what we're going through right now, I think.
Sure is.
And he notes that there's two types of cultural change. One is gradual change, and the other is a revitalization movement, which he says are deliberate, organized, conscious efforts by members of a society to construct a more satisfying culture. Yeah. And again, what falls under this are the nativistic movements. So again, what we're seeing right now with people wanting to go back to the good old days, what we're talking about, where you try to, he says this is when you try to revive a traditional culture that's now fallen. So, and again, what Schoenemann says is that most of these movements, whether it be witch hunts, they're rooted in the paranoia of reorientation. A menace is perceived, and a campaign of elimination and purification is mounted.
Amazing.
Yeah. So, again, he notes that even though you try to reduce the stress, the cultural stress, by taking out these people that you think are responsible for it, witch hunts never provide this terminal relief. Instead, they augment disorganization and strain in culture. So again, the more you try to eliminate it, what you perceive to be a threat, whether it be witchcraft or whatever it is, you just make more. It's just like with the Inquisition. You create more.
Because you're pushing back against it, which is exactly what a witch would do.
Right.
God damn it.
Yeah, and I think, nowadays, probably in our current environment, we're not calling them witches per se, but we're definitely going out now and trying to demonize strong women, women like Taylor Swift or Beyonce, people of color, LGBTQ or transgender people. Again, the idea is that these people are responsible for all the ills of our culture, just like we used to say about witches. But of course, you'll never be able to end that. I mean, because the more you push back against it and say like, now we've passed these laws against them, it seems like it's never enough. It's never satisfying for people, because that's not really the cause of the cultural stress. You know what I mean?
Exactly. It's not going to solve the problem. It's that it isn't the problem.
Right. And I think that's what's happening now. If like you see, whether it be laws to ban books or whether you see laws about bathrooms, it's not providing the relief. So I don't know how this will play out. I really don't know how this will play out. But it's to be recognized that as like a form of what 500 years ago was called a witch hunt, I guess. A real witch hunt, I guess.
Well, God, this is depressing.
I don't know. Well, God. I will say, John, you and I are both old white men.
Yes.
And we're both products of very strong women.
Yes, we are. Our mothers were definitely would be put on that list, probably.
I know. I mean, with your mother with her political beliefs and activism.
Yep.
And my mother,
Kansas.
I know. In the 60s and 70s and 80s.
Jesus.
And my mother, who was, divorced and didn't take any crap off of any husband or men and wanted to lead her own life.
Totally.
They probably both would have been, suspected of witchcraft at one time. And I'd say also all of the women who I've been good friends with throughout my life have all been like really strong, really independent, brilliant, outspoken, hilarious. And again, probably at another time, they would have been accused of witchcraft.
Wait a minute. Well. I'm seeing where this is going. That means you're a witch. Because you're the son of a witch, and you're attracted to witches. Okay.
Well, I mean, you see, and I got the witch mark. I got the witch mark on my ass.
And you got the witch mark on your ass.
I probably would have been burned myself at one time.
Well, can't you use some of your powers to keep helping the podcast? I mean, come on.
That's why, I mean, when I was reading about how many people bought the Harry Potter books, I'm like, wow, that's pretty good.
Yeah,
that's
it is.
Pretty good.
Yeah, it is.
All right, John. So
wow, amazing.
Yeah.
Well, I'll never watch Bewitched again in the same way after this podcast.
Well, I hope it just provides a little background when you hear people throwing those out, like those metaphors out. So.
Once again, you've taken us on a ride, a journey through the fabric of this. We're through the loom that creates the fabric of this society. Yes. What's the thing that you toss through a loom? The
shuttle. Isn't it the
shuttle? It is the shuttle. You are the shuttle tossing us through the loom. Wow, and I'm the one who pushes it together at the end. But together we will weave a new rug. A rug for a new future.
Wow. That's what I like to see that metaphor. Let's not use that metaphor is justified.
Yes, it is. We've earned that. We're an hour 9 into the podcast. We've earned the loom metaphor.
All right. Well, John,
this is the human number 2, John Lehr, signing off.
And this is human number 1, John McCray. Thank you so much for listening, everybody. If you enjoyed this podcast, please tell a friend about it. And don't forget to check us out on Facebook, Instagram. And are we on Substack now, John?
We are. I haven't fully. I'm not sure. I think I have done it. We have an account.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't really know. I don't even know what Substack is, to be honest.
All right, so forget about this. I was thinking it was another thing I'd have to learn how to post on. I'd probably screw it up.
I'd
probably screw it up.
No, we've got to have a sidebar on this.
Okay, all right. Well, John, I'm going to say, give you a blessing. I have a little charm for you here.
Yes, blessings. May the goddess guide you. to the island of, I don't know, whatever it's supposed to happen. I'm gonna get us both some labradite. That's what's gonna happen.
Yeah, that's what we should sell labradite on the website. So.
Yep.
All right, everybody. We wish you well, blessings, and we love you guys. Thanks for listening, John. Love you. Talk to you later.
Bye.